We're starting to add quite a bit of code to our application, so it's a good time to introduce a robust file structure that will allow us to stay organized as we continue to develop our code base. This file structure begins at the top level with our index.html file. We'll notice that we moved all of our Angular specific files into this app folder. When we expand this app folder, we'll see that at the top level of it, we have our app.js file. All the rest of the files are in our module folder. Now, this isn't to say that we should always have just a single module folder containing all files other than our top level app.js file, which only includes the initialization of our module along with the dependencies of that module globally. But what it means is, or what it's more indicative of, is that we should modularize our file structure according to the different components of it. So we might have a module called reviews, or a module called authentication, or messages, or so on and so forth. We should break our modules up into folders that make sense according to the application we're developing. When we click into our module folder, we'll see that we've broken out our files into controllers, services, and templates. At the top level, we have our routes. And our routes just contain the different states that we've defined for that particular module. So if we also had, for instance, an authentication model that had a login and register route, it wouldn't be contained in this module.routes.js, it would be in that authentication folder file structure. Moving on, we expand our controllers and we see that we broke out our myController and widgetController into two separate files. One thing we'll notice about all these files that aren't the top level app file is they all include the angular.module bit. That tells Angular which module these controllers belong to, but we don't need to repeat the dependency injections for that app module. We've done that at the top level and we don't need to do it again at each of the sublevels. I'm going to go ahead and close these files that we have open and keep moving down the file structure. When we open our services folder, we'll see we only have one file in here. Now, it's kind of personal preference. We could include, since it's just one file, we could include it in the services directory, or we could include it at the top level. It could be argued that we shouldn't have a folder that contains a single file, as that's a little bit too deep and wasteful in terms of the amount of levels of folders that we have. But I included it just to show that we might expect to have multiple services in this folder, and this is just one of those services that we included. And then finally, we have our templates for both our temp and widget HTML files. Now, one thing that's worth pointing out is that in our module.routes file, we need to update the template URLs according to where these templates are now stored. And they're no longer relative to the path of the module.routes.js, they're relative to our index.html file. So that's it. Hopefully this file structure makes sense for you. Of course, this isn't the only way to structure our Angular applications, but it is the convention that we'll use for this course. Go ahead and restructure your program files using this architecture, and we'll see you in the next lesson on directives.